Okay, thank you. Okay, we're now live, so welcome to everyone. And we'll start today's Cabinet meeting off with apologies for absence. It's only Michael's who's been notified, Michael Payne. Okay. And the second item is to approve as correct record of the minutes of meeting held on 6th of October 2022, which Jenny kindly chaired for me. So, do you want to move it, Jenny?
Yes, I'll move.
Okay. Seconded. Agreed? Thank you. Declarations of interest, are any to declare there? None to declare. So we'll have the forward plan at item 4, please. So what on the forward plan?
Yeah, so it's for Cabinet to note.
Okay. So we'll move the recommendation here, which is to note. Agreed? Thank you. And Mike will inform us about what's happening with modern day slavery. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and good afternoon, everyone. So the purpose of this report today is to seek Cabinet approval of the Modern Slavery and Human Trafficking Statement for 2021-22, and that includes the associated commitments to practical action to do what we can as a borough. So in terms of background, modern slavery is an umbrella term encompassing slavery, servitude, forced work and human trafficking, and the definitions of those are included within the report. There are a number of different types of exploitation that victims of modern slavery may be subjected to, and these are sexual exploitation, labour exploitation, forced criminality, organ harvesting, which sounds particularly horrible, and domestic servitude. Now, it does go relatively unnoticed, but as you can see in the report at paragraph 1.3, nearly 13,000 potential victims of modern slavery were referred to the Home Office via the National Referral Mechanism in 2021, and that represented a 20% increase on the previous year. So whilst it is possible for anyone to become a victim of modern slavery, there's certain groups that are deemed to be more at risk than others. And these include young people, women and girls, homeless people, people who can speak little or no English, asylum seekers and refugees, and people with learning difficulties and mental health problems. So all of those categories we can find examples of modern slavery occurring. So going back to the legislation, the Modern Slavery Act was approved in 2015. In short, it consolidated and clarified the existing modern slavery and human trafficking offences and increased the maximum sentences for committing those offences. It introduced slavery and trafficking prevention orders that the police can use, and slavery and trafficking risk orders, again, two different variations on the powers that the police have, and they can be used to disrupt any activities perpetrated by modern slavery activists. It also created the role of the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. It introduced support and protection of victims, a key action that everybody needs to follow, certainly protecting the atrocities that can happen. And it introduced a requirement for certain businesses to produce and publish a modern slavery statement. And that explains what we are doing to tackle modern slavery and human trafficking in the supply chains. Now, as a local authority, we don't need to do that. However, it is good practice for us to do, hence the statement here today. The Act does include a number of provisions for local authorities. Firstly, a duty to identify and refer modern slavery child victims and consenting adults through the National Referral Mechanism. Secondly, a duty is placed on us to notify the Home Secretary of any adults who do not consent to enter the NRM. And thirdly, a duty to cooperate in full with the Independent Anti-Slavery Commissioner. So, putting this into context, local authorities have 4 distinct roles to play: identification and referral of victims, supporting those victims, offering community safety services and disrupting activities where we can, and as I've already said, ensuring that supply chains that local authorities interact with and procure from are free from modern slavery. Gedling has previously been quite proactive in modern slavery. We do have Lord Coker, who's quite a key member in this. and the Chief Exec prior to me and myself both chair the Nottinghamshire Modern Slavery Partnership. We do have an approved modern slavery policy. It's dated back to June 2018, and I am working on that to update that at the current time. So the proposal here is that, in line with the Act, as I said, we don't need to do it, but it is good practice to do so. So in line with the Act and the recommendation from the Joint Committee on Human Rights, Cabinet is asked to approve the modern slavery and human trafficking statement for 2021-22. Thank you, Chair. Leader.
Thanks, Mike. Any comments? David.
Thank you, Chair, and thanks to Chief Executive for the report. Although, as he says, we don't need to do this. It's important that we do have a strong policy and set the standards. And I'm happy that this report does. I would support it, and the proactive approach. I mean, there are examples where we have been involved in disrupting modern slavery locally, and I think that's the good thing to be. What I would say, though, is that some politicians nationally send the wrong signals. I mean, there's some that deliberately conflate immigration and refugees and human trafficking, and all the stuff about a hostile environment makes it harder for people who have been trafficked, for modern slaves, to seek help. So I just think it's important that everybody moderates their language on this and takes the issue seriously. But I'm happy to support it. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Catherine.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm pleased to see that all new councillors will receive safeguarding training in 2024, and that employees are receiving awareness training for safeguarding domestic violence and modern slavery. I just feel that it would be beneficial for all new councillors as part of their induction to receive modern slavery awareness training, as councillors are community champions and perhaps best placed to spot any and report any concerns that they may have, especially as Mike, as the Chief Exec has already alluded to, that those most vulnerable in our society are going to be those ones that are likely to be victims. Thank you.
Thank you. Viv.
Yeah, thank you, Chair, and thank you, Chief Exec Mike, for the report. Absolutely 100% support this. Just to echo what my colleague, Councillor Fox, has just said, it's the eyes and ears of the community, isn't it? It's the eyes and ears of the workforce, it's the eyes and ears of the community, and like you say, councillors as local champions to root out these evil people in terms of the practice, the deplorable practice of exploiting vulnerable people. So yeah, 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think just to remind people who are looking at this on YouTube or listening to it, this has moved a long way. It might seem very slow as local government and national government sometimes are with things, but this has moved incredibly to get a position now where you've got statements, you've got it is a term that is used often, modern day slavery, unfortunately. But I go back some way now where I can remember and other people will in this room remember the people who were killed in those cockle fields up in Morecambe, and working with one of the chief constables up there, and I remember what she was saying about it, the horrendous impact on people. People didn't know where they did it. Eventually, I think, identify everybody and repatriated families, etc. But that was only the tip of the iceberg, and it goes on from sex trafficking, all sorts of things like that are going on. It is making people aware, and I'm glad that this council is actually paying some attention and making sure that we're supporting things like the modern slavery, human trafficking statement. So with those few comments, I'll move that recommendation. Thank you. In favour? Agreed. Thank you. Moving over now to item 6. I can hear the Treasurer clearing her throat. Ready? The Treasurer's just always does when one mentions money.
God, it's choking.
We'll just cut.
Thank you, Leader.
Are we ready? Thanks,
yes,
Alison.
ready. Yes, thank you, Leader. So yes, this is our usual quarterly monitoring of our prudential indicators and treasury activity for Q2. So just to start off, in terms of the economic update, you'll be aware that the economy has been subject to great volatility in recent months, particularly in response to, more recently, to the former Chancellor's mini-budget. Consumer price inflation has now reached double figures, and is expected to remain at this level in the short term, but then is expected to drop back. The Bank of England's Monetary Policy Committee has increased interest rates. It's included in the report at 2.25%. So that was at their last meeting, but there has been a further meeting today, and they have increased it again by another 0.75%, and it's now gone up to 3%. So our Treasury advisors do expect interest rates to reach 5% ultimately by March of next year. Clearly that has an impact not only for ourselves as a council in terms of our interest costs and investment returns, but also clearly a big impact on our community as well. So in terms of our own interest rates, the upside risk for us, so this has resulted in more income from our investments than we expected. So we did start the year with an original budget of £60,000, and we do now expect our investment income to reach £250,000 by the end of the year if the rates do continue at this level, and that is included in the budget monitoring report, which is the next item on the agenda. We haven't taken any new borrowing during the last quarter or in the year to date so far. We have maintained sufficient cash balances and short-term balances to meet all of our liabilities as they fall due, and we haven't encountered any liquidity problems during the year. Our capital programme does require further borrowing, but at the moment we're not reporting any impact of increased borrowing costs at this point, so we haven't undertaken any further borrowing to date, but we will clearly need to keep a close eye on that. This is likely to have an impact for us on our capital projects going forward into the new year, so we will be looking at this closely as part of the budget process and reviewing business cases appropriately. Just to finish off, we are required clearly as a council to ensure that our borrowing activity is conducted in accordance with prudential and treasury indicators, and these are set by full council at the beginning of the year. So that's to ensure that our borrowing is affordable and sustainable. These are set out for you in appendices 1 and 2, and I can report that we have so far complied with all of the indicators in full. So I'll leave that there, Leader. The recommendation is on page 31.
Thank you. Any comments there? No? Anyone chooses to read this? They need to go on. It's all on the website, isn't it? All this?
Yes, it is, yeah.
No further comments. I'll move that we note that recommendation. Thank you. Agreed. Done. Moving over again. Thanks, Alison.
Yes, thank you, Leader. So this is our usual quarterly budget monitoring report. You'll see within the report, in terms of our general fund revenue budget, that we do have a forecast overspend of just over £190,000 at the end of Q2. Which is just in summary proposed to be funded from the transformation reserve at this point. All of the major variances are summarised in paragraph 2.1 on page 49 of the report, with the primary reason for the overspend being inflationary pressures arising in the economy that I've just referred to, so the so-called cost of living crisis. The main impacts included in the report for this quarter are the additional pay award. So that has now been agreed. The settlement of that did come in above what we were forecasting at 3%, and so that's an additional cost for the council of £531,000. And that will, of course, have an ongoing impact for the council's budgets as we work into the budget process and the medium-term plan for next year. We've also had this quarter we're reporting an increase in discretionary housing payments, so we've had further demand from our community, so that's an additional cost of £41,000. Those cost of living impacts reported this quarter, they have been offset to a degree by a reduction in our minimum revenue provision, which is our requirement for repayment of our borrowing from revenue, and that's due to the capital programme outturn from last year being lower than we expected. And we do have the additional £130,000 in investment income that I've referred to on the previous item. And we do have some additional garden waste income to report this quarter, which is positive, just under £50,000. So the £192,000 overspend is after applying in full our inflationary pressures contingency reserve that you'll recall from last quarter was stood at £296,000. And whilst Cabinet are currently being asked to approve the funding of the final overspend this quarter by a contribution from the transformation reserve, it's important just to alert you to that we are likely to have further demands on our transformation reserve during the rest of this financial year to support the delivery of our efficiency programme. And so we will actually be working hard during the second half of the year to identify further savings to enable that fund to be replenished. In terms of other cost of living impacts that we've been experiencing, it's important to note that also included now in 22-23 is a temporary cost of living support payment for some of our staff members of £250 pro rata for all staff in bands 1 to 7, and that has been approved by the leader already. That has an estimated cost of £95,000, which will be met from the Efficiency and Innovation Reserve. And also included in the report is a proposal for approval of a budget for £76,000, which is required both in the current financial year and on an ongoing basis to enable the proposed increase in minimum pay levels, raising that to for all our staff to spinal column point 5 as the minimum level, subject to approval by Appointments and Conditions of Service Committee, which are currently consulting on that proposal. So in the current year, we propose to fund that from the Transformation Reserve, and in future years by savings identified in reduced national insurance contributions. And leader, a separate, an additional recommendation in respect of that ongoing budget requirement has been circulated to Cabinet for consideration. In terms of the capital programme, so that's detailed in paragraph 2.3 of the report. So there are some significant movements in the programme this year. This quarter, the major one being our contribution costs to the Gedling Access Road, so that has now been completed. So this was expected, and this will be funded from seal contributions, and that was approved for this purpose, but we have now been asked to make that payment. So £4.5 million will be going for that purpose. We have added to the budget this quarter 300,000, just under 300,000 for UK shared, for schemes to be funded from the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. Once that's approved, then we'll be ready to go with that. In terms of deferrals, so the major deferrals on the programme is the Burton Road and Station Road Affordable Housing Programme. So that business case is under review at the moment. So that will probably come back for approval through the budget process in a different format. So I'll leave it there, Leader. We have got the additional recommendation. I don't know if you want me to read that out. Do you want me to read that out as an additional?
Please.
Right. Okay, so in addition to the recommendations that you've already got on page 47 of the pack, there's the additional recommendation which reads to approve the ongoing budget of £76,000 from 23-24 onwards to enable the proposed increase in the minimum pay level to spinal column point 5 as detailed in paragraph 2.1 of the report, subject to the approval of the proposal by Appointments and Conditions of Service Committee at its meeting in December. to be funded by savings identified in employee expenses arising from the proposed reduction in national insurance contributions.
Okay. That's better. Put your microphone on, John. No questions? So no further questions. Thank you for all the work. And I'll move that recommendation with that added one you've just read out. So I'll move that. Seconded. Agreed. Thank you. Moving across to item 8. Are you doing this one, Mike?
I am.
Thank you.
I think we're all croaking leader today. Thank you very much. So this report sets out the performance data for the council at the end of Q2, which takes us up to the end of September 2022. As usual, starting with the actions, there are 90 actions currently active in the multi-year Gedling plan ending in March 2023. At the end of Q2, we have completed 8 actions with the remaining 82 now well in progress, and no problems with delivery are anticipated at this stage of the year. In terms of performance indicators, there are 32, 19 are currently on target, 2 slightly below target, and 5 did actually miss the target this quarter. The other 6, as always, are for data tracking purposes only. The table in paragraph 2.4 shows examples of particularly positive performance, and I want to draw your attention to 3 of these, if I may. Firstly, the number of long-term empty homes returned to use, and we define long-term homes in this instance as over 6 months. And the performance is we have achieved a figure of 17 against a quarterly target of 10. Very similar to the first quarter, so this trend is continuing. Percentage of planning applications processed, and this is whether there be major, minor and other categories. They have all exceeded their respective targets this quarter. And finally, the number of visits to leisure centres has exceeded the target by almost 25%, again, this quarter. So all good news with those 3 in particular. Members will also remember that the number of net additional homes provided fell short of the target last year. I reported a positive performance and positive turnaround in Q1, and again, it's good to see that this has again exceeded the target in this quarter as well. Referring to the indicators that have missed the target, there were 5 of those, and these are explained in paragraph 2.5. The first one is in terms of processing housing benefit change of circumstances. If members remember at Q1, I did report we saw huge levels of referrals from the DWP. It took us some time to address these, and we started processing them in bulk. Some of this processing did feature and roll into Q2, which has now resulted in us just slightly missing the target this quarter. But moving forward, I anticipate that this will be meeting target, in line with what's been set. In terms of working days lost to sickness, this does remain high, but it is reducing quarter on quarter. And we need to remember this is a rolling 12-month target, and the figures from the earlier months do still represent COVID-related sickness. So again, I anticipate that to come down further, although we are entering the colder months, but hopefully it'll keep reducing. The current number of Leisure DNA members has missed the target this quarter, but believe that this is mainly down to the cost of living issues that our residents are currently facing, and there are also a presence now of cheaper local gyms as well, and that is having an impact, unfortunately. Recycling of household waste is an issue, and the council continues to focus its attention on trying to address this. But as always, it is hampered by the complex restrictions on what can and can't be recycled, and we continue to discuss with the County Council and Veolia what we can do to improve this. And finally, the percentage of invoices paid within 30 days did fall short this quarter. We anticipate that this is a one-off, and we expect it to return to normal in the future. In terms of achievements this quarter, these are set out in detail in the appendix, but in paragraph 2.7 there are some in particular highlighted. So we have the Shared Prosperity Fund bid. It was submitted in the quarter, and we are now awaiting a decision by government on the suitability of our investment plan. Once this is approved, we can start to spend the money, as Alison's just said, and that has been built into the budget for this year. The leader has introduced a new council cabinet role. Councillor Fox in the audience. Give us a wave, Catherine. And that is to support refugees, women and the disabled. We have achieved a 5th Green Flag Award. Again, four parks have continued to to win the Green Flag Award, and we now have a new one, which is for Breck Hill Park. So congratulations again to all involved in that. The Gedling Green Homes retrofit scheme, under which the council has installed further energy efficiency measures, and that's another 51 homes in Netherfield that have now achieved and had installations put in there. There's a long-standing requirement for the council internally to review and introduce a new leisure management system. This has now been rolled out. It has improved customer functionality and it has improved access to our services. You know, all very positive stuff, and hopefully the feedback from customers is just that. The continuation of the payment to residents under the energy bills rebate scheme, the £150. The council has now, and I'm really proud of them for doing this, the team, we've now paid out to 99.4% of our entitlement to residents. We're probably one of the highest in the country to do this. I'm really proud of that. The Swim England Teaching and Education Awards this year, where we are shortlisted for Swim School of the Year Award. I think we're still awaiting an announcement, unless the portfolio holder can tell me otherwise, but I think we're still waiting. We're still waiting, thank you. And again, temporary accommodation, we have secured a further 2 additional lease properties to provide further council support to our homeless families. So, as always, can I once again place on record my thanks to all the staff involved in the excellent performance this quarter, and happy to answer any questions, Leader. Thank you.
Thank you. You want to comment, Viv?
Thank you, Chief Executive Mike. That was really heartening to see during this difficult time that we've got so many achievements in the borough, so well done to everybody. It's great to read. I just wanted to highlight, obviously with one of my responsibilities around equality, that we have rolled out this quarter the Equality, Diversity and Inclusion Training Programme for all staff, and I'm really pleased to see that for the first quarter we've had a great start. We've had a 42% take-up of that training, which is brilliant. And what we're trying to create clearly is to build on the positive environment that we've got in the borough, but it's about creating that positive and supportive environment and a strong feeling of feeling safe and respected within the organisation. So it's really important that the staff, and obviously the opportunity will come for elected members also to do that training, and I hope that will be taken up. But I just wanted to put on record that was a great start, and thanks to everybody that sort of, went straight to the course, and I think we've got positive feedback on that as well, so thanks.
Thank you, David.
Thank you, Chair. I'd echo the comments about it's a very impressive list of achievements over the last quarter. I'd like to pull out a couple of them if I can. I think the retrofit scheme is a really good scheme in Netherfield, both addressing both climate change and cost of living issues. I think the domestic violence, a worker from Juno working with the housing and homelessness team is a really good initiative, and it follows up a recommendation from the scrutiny, Ovian scrutiny, about better links between the two. And finally, the energy rebate scheme, that was difficult circumstances, but really well managed. I was particularly pleased. One of my residents got in touch about the issue of the photo ID for people collecting cash in at the post office, and the team responded by increasing the amount of ID that was acceptable. In this case, it was older persons' bus passes would do. So I just think that's both a difficult thing and responding to our residents. So I think it's all very creditable. Thank you.
Thank you. Got Jenny then, Catherine.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Just to endorse everything that's been said and send our thanks and congratulations to all the staff who've made these achievements in difficult circumstances. I know I mention every time the Empty Homes officer who continues to achieve over and above the target, but it's an important issue because empty homes bring light on the streets as well as taking away decent housing for people. I too was pleased to see the retrofit scheme again, houses that will be safer and warmer and hopefully a bit cheaper for those residents. And it's nice. It would be nice to think we can get a lot more done. And I did read the report on the energy bills rebate scheme and was incredibly impressed by the way that had been handled, and to achieve, 99.4 of the target is really quite incredible. And I know they worked really hard to get some of those difficult payments where they should be and out to those people. So just a thank you to everybody who's been involved in these achievements. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Leader. Just to allude to what David has said, yes, it is sad to see that it's needed, but just to recognise that obviously the council has built strong partnerships, and one of those has been mentioned is Juno Women's Aid, who are working 2 days a week at Civic Centre to offer support and help to those most vulnerable. And also to say that it's fabulous that there is provision in the capital programme, which includes provision for the Green Lung project, improving health and wellbeing, carbon mitigation and improving biodiversity for habitat improvement, and the pollinator wildflower planting plan. And also it's good to see how many Green Flag Awards our parks have had. So just thanks to all our officers, because I think for a very small council, against a very difficult backdrop that we have at the moment, we are working extremely hard, and we have got a lot of achievements to be very proud of, and just thanks to our officers for all the hard work that they're putting in. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you, Leader. Just without repeating what's already been said, just to point out that accomplishments like the Green Flag Award involve a lot of friends, a lot of residents, and what needs to be remembered, and is because both Viv and I are involved with the Breck Hill group of friends, is that it pulls communities together, and that's a really important point. So Gedling's very good at doing that. The council are extremely good, the people that work behind the scenes to pull those groups together. And there are a number of friends of groups that are building up as we speak. So I think it's really important to remember how important these awards are, not just as an award, as a flag, you know, to say we're doing the right thing, that's everybody's pulling in the right direction. It does gel communities together, and there's a value added to all of these. So well done to everybody that's involved in it.
Thanks, Ryan. I think you're right there. The hidden bonus that comes from it is and particularly one is Breck Hill, where they did the community orchard. The people, you know, when we were planting those trees that morning, they were, well, I've walked past you for 2-3 years, but I've never said hello. And yet those people are now working together, keeping an eye on it. And I don't think we've lost one tree yet on that, have we? And I think the same on the country park is similar to it. So, you know, the friends of groups are an important part of helping this council, as are the staff, because we often say, you know, without that we won't deliver the budget. It's quite true. It's interesting reading on here, and I've just highlighted the number of visits to leisure centres, which have gone up. That's against the national trend, have gone down. And look at the news today, where lots of councils are looking to close their places. I think it was Rebecca Adlington who was on the TV this morning, say it was unfortunate, but that was a position. So I think people locally can be quite proud that through the officers, through the members, we managed to keep the places running. And it is difficult sometimes, particularly through the last 3 years. That's not an excuse, it's a fact. It's a fact that we, you know, all sorts of pressures, and we've got them now. Alison, can I just ask about the business rates? That's healthy, actually. For July, September, 61.2% as against a target of 54.9%. Have we got coming on stream yet the likes of the new Aldi, the Sainsbury's, there's a great big building going up near Sainsbury's. Yeah, will that come into next year's accounts?
Yeah, I believe Sainsbury's has come on stream. Now, I'm not sure about the Aldi provision, but yes, the collection rates, both in business rates and council tax, are holding up really well this year. So we will keep an eye on that. There has been some additional reliefs from government through the CARF scheme for larger businesses, so that's probably helped a little bit. But yeah, they're holding up surprisingly well.
I think also it enforces the fact that we're prepared to grow the borough as a group and as a Labour group, and that's paying off. There's no doubt in that. So really pleased to see those figures. But again, is anyone else anything else, Henry?
Yeah, just
just like to say a huge thank you to the Leisure Services team for all the hard work that they've done over the last few years. I'm really, really pleased to see that we're still got very high, numbers of people coming to our leisure facilities and using those, despite the issues around the cost of living crisis, which have had an impact on a lot of people recently. And will continue to do so. I'd also like to say a huge thank you to the Leisure Services team for the implementation of the new leisure management system. Not an easy one to do, but it's up and running now, and I'm sure it's it's had one or two glitches along the way, but it is going to be successful moving forward. And a huge thanks for the team to for being shortlisted in the swimming, the swimming lessons and swim stars. So by and large, brilliant work by the Leisure Services team, despite all the issues ongoing that we've had through the cost of living crisis and the issues with COVID, which is not going away; it's still around. So well done to all the team there. Thank you.
Thanks, Henry. And I think if you look at the things that are going off today with refugees, etc., it was a correct decision to bring in somebody that looked at, it may only be a small amount of people, probably about 100, I think, at the moment, of people that are coming here. History of looking after people from Syria, Afghan, etc. But it needs to be done correctly, and it needs to be done. Whereas I feel nationally, it's not just a dig at the government. It is, I don't know, it seems to be such a mess, and we've got to look out. They're human beings at the end of the day, and I'm pleased that we've now got a role there that will highlight those and keep an eye on it locally, and hopefully we'll be able to assist government at some point to, this is a way we deal with it here, and this is the way we should be dealing with it, over a national basis. So, welcome, Catherine. So, where are we? A recommendation. So, we're progress against the improvement actions, performance indicators in 2020 and 23, Gedling plan for the year, end of Q2. Be noted. There's no other addition to that recommendation, is there? No. Okay, I'll move that. Seconded, agreed? Yeah, thank you. So we'll move on to item 9. And this is progress report on carbon management strategy. And are you doing this one, Mel? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides an annual update as regards progress against the climate declaration made by the Council in 2019 to achieve carbon net zero by 2030. Members are recommended to note progress made to date. In March 2022, following public consultation, the carbon management strategy and action plan were approved. In support of this, the Council commissioned APSI Energy to establish our carbon baseline from which we'll be able to measure improvement moving forwards. The report provided information as regards where we need to be focusing our efforts and serves as a benchmark to enable us to measure our carbon reduction target achievements year on year. At the start of the year, the Climate Change Officer took up post and has worked to actively engage with climate groups and other community groups supporting the Keep Britain Tidy, Big Spring Clean, for example. They organised a refuse freighter visit to local schools so that children could understand how a bin lorry works and best understand what happens to their waste and what materials should go into the recycling bin. This educational initiative served to reinforce the waste hierarchy and educate the next generation. Over the summer, they have worked in collaboration with various partners to deliver environmental events, working with Age Concern and Men in Sheds and the Burton Joyce Climate Change Group to facilitate the delivery of 2 large precinct planters using peat-free compost and plants for pollinators. And elsewhere, for example, at the Queen's Jubilee event held in Arnott Hill Park, promoting the transition to net zero. In July, we promoted Plastic Free July through a series of videos filmed to promote ways to reduce single-use plastic when purchasing everyday items, and alongside the Meek sisters, why using single-use plastics is a problem. There are good photographic and video examples of the activities undertaken, and these can be seen in Appendix 1 of the report and elsewhere. We have been recognised this year for the actions we're taking to tackle the climate emergency by Climate Emergency UK, who alongside Rushcliffe graded as joint highest in the 7 districts and boroughs in Nottinghamshire. But we acknowledge there is no resting back on this. Following an audit by BDO Global in summer, their draft report identifies that there remains risk to some targets being unachievable within the time frame, so there's much to be done. For this reasons, meetings have taken place this summer with all heads of service to embed climate management in our service planning process, with a new corporate group being formed to monitor and manage performance against actions and KPIs in our processes. In order to achieve the council targets, we've worked on cultural and behavioural change within the council, integrating carbon champions into our workforce and carbon management into the Gedling Employee and Manager Standards and PDR process. And we've organised carbon literacy training for SLT and all our heads of service, with further training forthcoming. We've also been working externally in the borough, as mentioned earlier, successfully implementing and completing the first phase of the local authority Green Homes retrofit scheme in partnership with Net Zero Hub, Nottingham Energy Partner and Eon Energy Services, a scheme that targets home energy efficiency improvements to homes with D and below energy performance certificates. We've also been planting trees to establish new woodland areas at Digby Park and Gedling Country Park, and establishing wildflower bee pollinator meadowlands in our parks and open spaces. In terms of the Green Home scheme, the scheme targeted properties in the Netherfield ward, which have the highest proportion of eligible households and a high volume of solid wall properties, which were target retrofit measures for the scheme. In total, measures were installed to 51 homes, which included 18 owner-occupiers receiving solid wall insulation, 19 owner-occupiers receiving solar panels, and 14 social rented tenants receiving solar panels. The council is now commencing its next phase of local authority delivery retrofit work in Netherfield and also Newstead Village, using the funding allocation recently received from Midlands Net Zero Hub of 890,000. A proportion of this funding will be directed at homes that are not connected to the gas network for heating fuel. The new waste fleet and depot manager started this year also and is currently working on proposals to transition the existing fleet to electric and hydrogenated vegetable oil, an advanced renewable diesel that offers a fast and simple step towards net zero. This fuel can be used without capital expenditure for changes to infrastructure, whilst removing cost barriers and enabling a practical step towards decarbonisation. So much work has been done this year, with solar panels installations, especially at the new Arnold Marketplace AMP building, which had 51 solar panels installed, on the roof of the building, which will help generate an estimated annual yield of 14,000 kilowatt hours of power, with LED light installation, pool covers in our leisure centres and thermal windows. But we acknowledge the continuing decarbonisation of our property portfolio will form the next part of the body of work that we need to undertake moving forward, against which progress will be monitored against the action plan in Appendix 2. And there are some examples of achievements already achieved this financial year, 2022 to 23, in Appendix 3 in terms of action against progress against actions in the action plan. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thanks, Mal. Comments? Ron?
Yeah, thanks, Leader. Can I just thank Mel and his team for all the hard work that they do. Really is a pat on the back for them all, how many positives that are coming out of the reports we're having, and I welcome this update meeting. I think at the end of the day, what everybody's pulling towards is to make Gedling a very healthy place to live in, whether it's to do work, to live, to play. I mean, we've got a number of green spaces. You only have to have a wander around Gedling or cycle around Gedling, and drive through it as well, and drive through all the places that is, you know, it's a really healthy place to live. I think the Gedling Access Road has improved things immensely as well. Obviously, hopefully that should see a reduction in carbon in terms of the congestion of traffic, etc. I think the appointment of the new waste fleet manager that Mel mentioned is a very positive move, and I know Mick's getting his feet well under the table to find out ways that we're going to improve services in the depot. It's a big task. Electrification of vehicles is never going to be cheap, and looking at how we use the depot is going to be important in the future as well, and looking for alternative forms of fuel. But I think it's a culture change that has to happen within the borough. I know there's a number of, promoting active travel, walking and cycling across the borough is something to look forward to the future. Greater use of public transport, etc., etc. The electrification points that we need to put in place are all in the pipeline. And obviously, I think the retrofit project has been a real success. And looking to see it roll out in Newstead and following on in Netherfield, it will be a big positive plus. But commend everybody who's been involved. I know Sim's not here today, but Sim with the climate manager and all the work she's done with schools, because at the end of the day, working with the children is going to be our way forward. What happens in the schools and education is going to, highlight what happens to the future, and hopefully it will have a positive impact. So thank you to Mel and his team and all those involved in that. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron. Mel, is there any way we can... I was just looking at the Gedling Country Park charge points. It seems to have gone on for years, that. I know it's not our fault, but is it still
the progress on that is the contract's being run by BP Pulse. The problem is they've oversubscribed themselves work-wise, so we've got the transformers already in place. They're connected and ready to go. We're just awaiting BP Pulse to come in and actually put the charge pole points in, and then that contract will be complete. And it remains the same for the Civic Centre as well, so I'll chase that up as part of...
Yeah, because one who goes to lots of different council buildings, and I see the charging points there, and we're still waiting our first charging point in front of this one. And the other is, I get some strange stories that drift back to me from the climate change group here that meet voluntarily, saying, well, you're not doing anything. Well, it's clear in these pages we are doing something. Is there any way we can sort of get that information to them, perhaps through Rob's team, to give them, to make sure that they can read some of this stuff, because there's a lot of work going off. And it's very disturbing to see people that have actually sat on this council saying, well, there's nothing going off, and there is. Ron?
Yeah, following on from that, Chair, I have been sending information over to them that's public access, and the most recent bit was about the culture change within the organisation that we talked about a few weeks ago, and they were really happy to discuss that in their last meeting a few weeks ago. So yeah, we hopefully pass some more on to them.
Brilliant, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else? So I'll move that recommendation. That's to note the progress made on the carbon management strategy and action plan. Move it. Second it. Agreed? Agreed, thank you. And I think, looking at the front of it, that should bring us to the end of this meeting. No other items that I consider urgent? None other jumping up and down? Nothing, Leader. Thank you for your attendance. Thank you.